Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Welcome to the Wild West that is Budapest, where it's commonplace for these clowns to behave like Uncle Sam. These guys are flaring over probably the world's most important Amazon package, only for it to be taken away by some broad with a silenced pistol. In the eastern side of the world, we're at a Moscow maximum security prison where someone immediately gets free out of their cell for no reason. The big Slavic dude that gets caught by a guard by the Englishman freeing people gives him some more playmates to let loose. Suddenly, some shifty girl is briefly seen scaling the sewers. It seems that this girl is working with the prison breaker from above. Speaking of which, he turns the entire prison into a full-scale fight club because the inmates get wild in and keep breaking people out. The security team is in absolute shambles. Then, the girl from the sewers claims that she's in position. The prison breaker suddenly blasts a beat of Dean Martin. Well, it surely attracts this guy enough for him to come out. He slides out of his cell, and voila! Enter Ethan Hunt, a Machismo agent who's free to be the world's greatest spy once more. The prison breaker is known as Benji Dunn, here to put Mr. Hunt back on the grid. But our hotshot spy has another trick up his sleeve. He wants to go through the rowdy, loose inmates rather than going through the extraction point. So Benji advises against it. Of course, Ethan gets his fist out, so Benji's forced to open the floodgates to the chaos.
Fine.
Ethan easily makes it through the violent crowd. Then he goes to the cell in particular, and it looks like he wants to free a fellow inmate. He grabs him out of there, but here comes the boy in blue with riot shields. Now, Ethan and his passenger have to fight their way through, including the heavily armored guards. The guards begin to overwhelm him, so Ethan hurriedly asks Benji to let loose all the inmates in the nick of time. They arrive at the basement where the prisoner thanks Ethan, but what was that rumbling? Well, roll out the debris-filled red carpet for Miss Jane Carter, the espionage expert that was running around the sewers like a rat. She's here to break Ethan and his friend out of that Soviet wolf pit. Ethan and Jane get to know each other a bit. Then it's time for Jane to bring out the Big Bang entrance. The prison break was a success. Now the crew is taking a breather in their van. Ethan finally introduces Bogdan, who holds valuable intel. That's why Ethan broke him out. Jane takes his thorough biometrics just to make sure he really is the legendary Ethan Hunt. Then Bogdan begins to think that Ethan is an American. Who gave it away, buddy? Is it the Caucasian face, the accent, or this a gun that shoots Bogdan? Not to worry, it's just a tranquilizer gun to lull Bogdan to sleep and be transferred off somewhere safe by Ethan's agency.
Are you not Russian?
After Bogdan's transfer, Jane seems misinformed, because apparently this was more of a breakout than a rescue mission. So Jane begins recapping to Ethan why he was broken out. Turns out that little hullabaloo in Budapest was supposed to be a simple courier mission by Agent Trevor Hanaway, the gunslinging agent who was permanently silenced. According to Jane, it was just supposed to be an easy intercept with her and Benji teaming up to meet a rendezvous courier. See, the problem was also simple. They don't know who the courier was.
I need a name, folks.
So Jane is left with one choice: absolute violence. She's forced to use force because these dudes won't reveal the courier's identity. Time is up and Agent Hanaway needs a name now because they can't track all the people getting off from this train. They finally got a match at the last minute. Marek Stefanski, the eyeballing agent, gets a positive ID on him, so he uses his neat spy gadget ring and accidentally pierces a sedative on Marek's hand. Once he's knocked out, Hanaway takes off with a file. That was supposed to be the end of the mission, but some dudes go for the hot pursuit on Hanaway. Benji and Jane were rushing to back him up, but the blonde assailant that goes by Sabine Moreau got to him first. Of course, you know how this goes. Then Jane gets to Hanaway. Too late, because the blonde already got away. Hanaway then whispers something into Jane's ear before he slowly slips into the abyss. Flashback's over, and apparently, Ethan does recognize Sabine as a mercenary working for an organization called the Diamonds. So, what was so important in that file? Well, it only contained the Russian nuclear launch codes. Ethan deduces that someone codenamed Cobalt has been eyeing on nuclear weapons for as long as he could remember. And even he knows Sabine worked for Cobalt before. Soon, the crew arrives on this sketchy street, where Ethan confirms his identity to this high-tech phone booth. Benji tells Jane the reason why Ethan was in prison was because of, well, too many rumors of either a fallout between him and the agency, or he did an unsanctioned hit. Whatever it was, Ethan gets briefed that the intel does confirm Cobalt is at large, and he's tasked to impersonate someone named General Anatoly Fedorov. What's their game plan? Well, Ethan will go to the Kremlin as the general, Then he has to retrieve Cobalt's highly guarded file before Cobalt himself arrives and destroys it himself. His teammates will be Agents Carter and Dunn. And of course, if he gets caught, then the agency will deny everything from him. Also, self-destruct initiated. Ethan then tells them what's about to go down, and Benji is in disbelief.
Okay.
God bless the motherland, because here's the grand monument known as the Kremlin. The place is crawling with Soviet guards. Then here comes Benji and General Anatoly, while Jane poses as a tourist outside the Kremlin walls. Benji is starstruck that he's literally working and walking alongside Ethan. Then Jane is on surveillance with this drone cleverly disguised as a balloon. The drone has reached its vent destination, so it's dropping time, while Benji and General Anatoly go inside the Kremlin's facilities. They do get scanned by security, and just when their information is finished downloading, they're given the green light. So much for tight security. But nonetheless, they're in. They walk down the halls to this dark, hidden facility. They encounter a security door, but that's no match for an iPhone doing hacking thingamajigs. They get through. Then they rig the security cameras. Ethan takes point, and there's one guard down the hallway. So he asks Benji to monitor the camera, but then he babbles about a woman named Julia. Benji then sees the opportunity to distract the guard with a fake sound device, and the guard bites. It's time to get the high-tech projector out because this baby is able to mimic the structure of an entire room. They set it up right when the guard is finished being distracted, so the plan from here gets more simple. Benji distracts the guard while Ethan takes point and decides whether to move in or not. They do this slowly and steadily up until they're more than halfway there. Ethan asks Benji to monitor the tablet, but he almost compromises the entire mission with his big face. Luckily, Ethan pushes him away fast enough, but the guard is now a bit sus. The render is complete, so now it's time to infiltrate the archives. Ethan gets looking. While Benji is on lookout, Ethan manages to find the location of the files, but they're empty. Then some disturbing noise comes up on their comms. It's a guard getting the life choked out of him. That's not the entire surprise, because apparently this dude is purposely broadcasting to their frequency so that he could alert the entire security team.
Капитан, архивная комната!
Benji comes to warn him, so Ethan signals a mission abortion. Ethan and Benji split up to meet later. Then Ethan comes across another dude who he doesn't realize is the guy that snitched. The projector can only handle one person looking at it, so it malfunctions and the illusion is broken. The guards rush past it. Then Ethan makes it to an underground part of the facility, then exits using a gate. He uses his disguise to signal the closure of a gate. Then he quickly dresses down to look like a common tourist, truly a master of disguise. Out in the open, he does recognize a guy with a suitcase, but right before he could give chase, the Kremlin explodes it into smithereens. The explosions are coming from below, so Ethan makes a run for it, but it catches up to him. Ethan then wakes up inside a hospital full of injured civilians, but as he inspects himself, he notices that he's cuffed to his stretcher. Ethan catches the news of the Kremlin explosion, and they're covering it up as a gas explosion. Suddenly, this Slav comes up to Ethan and he's caught red-handed for his disguise and a false communications device naming him the mastermind of the entire explosion. Ethan then moves to another room, but he sneakily yoinks a paperclip from the nurse's clipboard.
Поаккуратней.
One moment he's there, and now, ta-da! He pulls a Houdini. So these Russian prosecutors start looking for him. One of them finds him hanging from a ledge, which looks too high to jump from, even to the garbage can. So he's forced to go back to the prosecutor.
Not a good idea.
That's until he finds a moving van, and bingo! There's his ticket sliding out there. The prosecutor radios the force while Ethan quickly makes off with a lot of stolen clothes, shoes, and a phone. He immediately dials the agency with a secret combination and requests an evac. Then he dumps the phone. He then catches on a bar of how bad the Kremlin explosion was. In some suburban Russian home, this dude, Leonid Lysensker, becomes concerned for his family's safety. So he asks his wife Anna that he, her, and their son Alex should leave town for a couple of days. He gets back to the telly to see that the explosion might have been an attack against the country. So he wants to leave now. But surprise, it's that snitch from the Kremlin. He's got Leonid's family at gunpoint, and he needs him for some work.
We have work to do.
Back to the police-ridden nights of Russia. Ethan walks to the rendezvous point of his extraction, where he's picked up by the IMF secretary. Yesterday, he was here for a peace talk with Russia's bigwigs, but now he's going back to America to resign.
To hand the president my resignation.
Next to him is William Brandt, his intelligence analyst. Ethan gawks at William's position, so he asks him for a pen and horribly sketches the snitch from the Kremlin with a matching description to boot. William says that the snitch could be someone named Kurt Hendricks, a big brainiac, but he was booted off the strategy team because he was bonkers. Ethan quickly deduces that Cobalt is Kurt Hendricks. Ethan wants to warn the Russians because the explosion was apparently made so that Kurt could cover his tracks from stealing the real prize, a remote nuclear launch device. The secretary says that Russia won't listen to them because they blame the Americans for the explosion. Specifically, IMF is now disavowed thanks to the whole incident, and now they're all under the Ghost Protocol. The secretary has orders to bring back Ethan and his team and have them tried as the masterminds behind the whole ordeal. But of course, the secretary slips him tips from under the table. He totally does not instruct them to go rogue, act on their own, and clear their own name. The secretary gives him this one final mission for him to clear his name, and as one last favor, as a friend. Last doesn't emphasize this enough because they get in a shootout and the secretary and his driver are promptly game ended. The car goes underwater, so it's only Maverick and Hawkeye left alive. Despite being underwater, they're still being shot at, so Ethan gets the driver's body and puts a flare on it so that it could draw their fire. The plan works, and both agents finally get away. Suddenly, the Russian prosecutor from before comes in to investigate the scene. Looks like Bogdan is under their radar now too.
Прекратить огонь!
Ethan and William are left to hitch a ride around this train park. Then they find the agency's train. After a grueling identification, the two men get on board, where Benji and Jane are surprised to find Ethan alive. Ethan gets to work by analyzing the USB he got from the secretary. In the USB is a video about some Metal Gear-esque speech about the nuclear end of days. Then Ethan is on the line with another guy. He's trying to convince someone to get someone to Dubai, and they reach an agreement. After the video ends, Ethan debriefs them with his findings. That crackpot ranting was a young Kurt Hendricks. He's a nuclear extremist who currently has a nuclear launch device, while Sabine has the launch codes. Sabine is going to check in the Burj Khalifa in 36 hours, while another one of Cobalt's operators, Maurice Winstrom, is en route to Dubai. Winstrom is sent by Cobalt to Dubai to buy the launch codes from Sabine. Ethan then declares their disavowed Ghost Protocol status, and that these members and this car is all there is left. So if anyone wants to chicken out, now would be the perfect time. Fortunately, no one in the room is a coward, so it's mission briefing time. This is their one chance to take Cobalt. Now, this is going to be tricky because they need Cobalt's location. So here's the play. Spy the sale of the nuclear launch codes, snatch the codes quickly, then generate some fakes to sneak it back to Winstrom. Since both Winstrom and Sabine are both needed as assets, they cannot risk getting them ended. Now that the plan and the stakes are discussed, it's time to have a go at those sweet spy toys. Once the gang is strapped, it's time to get Sandy for Dubai. Ethan is driving the gang. Then he explains that they're gonna use modified decoy rooms to fool both the bad guys. Benji will disguise as Winstrom and meet up with Moreau. Speaking of meet up, step foot into the world's tallest building. The agents unload and they get ready for the mission. Everything should go according to plan, but nope. Benji says the servers that control the Burj are military grade, so they would need to do it manually from the outside and only outside because yada yada security. Plus, the directors just want you to see Tom Cruise to go #1 while scaling the world's tallest building from the outside. Ethan gets geared up.
Blue is glue.
And when it's red,
Dead.
So let's get climbing. This goes smoothly until a sandstorm brews up. Jane then walks in on the boys' stupid and dangerous stunt. Speaking of stupid, one of Ethan's gloves malfunctions for plot convenience, but he still makes it up with just one glove. Oops, butterfingers. He gets back up there and finally breaks into the server room. Security is breached, so time for the real plan to get going. Another setback. Sabine is early. Jane heads back for her Sabine disguise, while Ethan pulls another dangerous stunt. Too bad his line isn't long enough, so it's time for the leap of faith. A little less faith and a little more good trajectory next time, eh? Once everyone is back, it's time to get their gear and disguises in check.
What'd I miss?
Are you ready for this yet another setback? Leonid, the family man, is here. Apparently, he's here with Winstrom so that they could authenticate the launch codes. Time is running out because they're making their way to the meeting. So Ethan comes up with another stupid idea. Give them the launch codes. William doesn't want it, so he threatens to throw the fake codes out. Well, they really have no choice. Plus, their fake mask-making machine just broke out of nowhere. Man, these spies have the worst luck. Time to improvise. The field team goes out with their actual faces. Both meetings are now on play, and they're just a floor away. The meeting with Ethan kinda goes south because Sabine wants payment, but Ethan shrugs it off because he threatens her that they will all perish on this floor if she doesn't give the codes.
How good is your backup?
Meanwhile, Jane is getting off easy as she gets the diamonds, while Winstrom gets the codes. Things go rather smoothly because both Winstrom and Sabine get what they want. Winstrom storms out with Leonid, but he gets betrayed and shot. Shocker. To top it off, Sabine notices the snitch in William's eye. Finally, some action. Jane goes for Sabine, while Ethan hunts for Winstrom. Jane comes back with the prize alive, so Benji has to watch her now. Guess what? Another setback. The Russian prosecutors from before? Yeah, they're here, but nothing Ethan can't handle. Sabine then breaks free while William tries to revive Leonid.
Hey, stay with me, stay with me.
It's Jane versus Sabine. Well, Jane manages to pummel her, so finish her. Stage fatality. That's an oopsie. The sandstorm finally comes in between Ethan and Winstrom's chance. This pursuit gets into some GTA Online levels of tomfoolery. Then Ethan finds out Winstrom is wearing a mask. Ethan catches up, then ends up turning Winstrom's car into a burnout paradise. Winstrom is a slimy rat, so he manages to get away. Then it's revealed he's none other than Kurt Hendricks. The team retreats to a hideout where they argue like divorce-nearing parents about the whole disastrous operation. It's pretty obvious that William's not just some analyst, so Ethan gets under his skin.
Who are you really, Brent?
Then he goes out to meet with a secret informant. To do this, Ethan goes to the local docks and gets himself deliberately bagged. Back at the base, William tells his secret that he was supposed to guard a couple many years ago. Newsflash, they failed and the wife was never seen again. The husband was alive because William saw him. It was Ethan. That's why he was in Russian prison in the first place. On Ethan's side, the bag comes off, and Bogdan is there to greet him. Too bad he's cuffed to a chair. Turns out Bogdan's cousin over here is an arms dealer, so Ethan pieces the puzzle together. Kurt has the codes, the launch device. All he needs is a satellite, and he wants to know where to get one. He's told that it's in Mumbai, so that's their next stop. Plot twist, the arms dealer snitches to that nose-broken Russian prosecutor. Back to the team on the plane. Their person of interest is a man named Brij Nath, a multimedia tycoon who's got his hands on this baby, a Cold War satellite capable of launching nukes. The plan is simple. Sneak it, get the codes, and shut down the satellite before Kurt starts another Fallout 76.
Right.
It's time for Mumbai. Ethan and Jane arrive in style. Then the rest of the party gets into position. Jane seduces Brij while William and Benji get to work. Hawkeye gets too nervous to jump, but does it anyway. Jane and Ethan cause Brij to get jealous and he takes the bait. Russians are spotted on scene, so this party's about to get crazy. William and Benji hack through the servers, so now they need those satellite codes from Jane and Ethan. Hendricks is with Winstrom near the scene and he's programming the satellite, so disaster's about to strike. Jane chokes the codes out of Brij, then they track Hendricks. Ethan is on the move. The Russians are on his tail, then William barely gets out of a giant metal fan. Ethan races against time as he speeds the I-8 because Hendricks is about to let loose the nuclear fury. Too late now because the ICBM is in the air. Ethan doesn't give up and the two reach Winstrom and Kurt. They split up, then Jane gets hit, but backup arrives. Ethan manages to catch Kurt in this high-tech parking lot, and now they're like two hobos fighting over a sandwich. That's until Kurt game ends himself to keep the briefcase out of Ethan's reach. That until Ethan improvises stupidly to get down. Stupid, but it works. Everything falls into place, and just before the missile could hit ground zero, everyone does their part, and it's mission accomplished. The Russians see what Ethan prevented, so they're not enemies after all.
We are not enemies.
Some time passes and Ethan is drinking with Luther Stickle for the success of the entire operation. Ethan then drinks with the rest of his team. It's amazing this site wasn't ground zero for the end of the world. Ethan thanks the team for their efforts and offers them permanent team positions. All accept the mission. Except William. They're alone, so he finally spills about her past wife. Ethan hints, however, that might not be the case because she's still out there. It's even Stevens now, so William accepts his offer and leaves.
Secretary never told me.
Ethan shares a long, loving glance far from her wife. Then he disappears into the night. And that's up to speed on Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, starring Tom Cruise, Jeremy Renner, and Paula Patton. Were you on the edge of your seats for that nuclear ending? Let us know at the comments below using #CinemaRecap, and we'll see you in the next mission if you choose to accept it.